5 a.m. The night had been tolerably quiet, abundant perspiration, abdomen tight and painful in pressure. I prescribed a saline mixture. I insisted he resisted and began to question me respecting the composition of this medicine, its efficacy, and the harm it might do. It can do no harm, sire. You are certain of it? Quite. But if it does, I shall repair the mischief. By what means? I explained to him. Well, prepare the dose. But I warn you that my stomach is not accustomed to your drugs. Therefore, make your arrangements accordingly. I prepared the medicine, but he no sooner saw it ready than he began to laugh and said, You are in too great a hurry, doctor. Not yet. I'll think about it. We entreated him not to abandon his own defense and to seek some relief to his sufferings. He grew impatient and told us that we were all in league together against his poor stomach, that we knew very well that he did not believe either in medicine or in medicines, and bade me leave him alone. At 9 a.m., exacerbation of fever accompanied by icy coldness, which was chiefly felt at the lower extremities, pain in the head, oppression in the stomach, tightness of the abdomen. The emperor was frequently in want of me, and to send for me to go and return took up time. He would no longer have it so. You must be quite exhausted, doctor, said he with kindness. You are constantly disturbed and have not a moment to sleep. I am not gone yet, and must take care of you. I will have a bed prepared for you in the next room. He accordingly gave immediate orders to that effect, and then having described the symptoms and sensations he experienced, he added, Doctor, we are come to the point in spite of your pills. Do you not think so? Less than ever. Poe. Less than ever. This is another medical deception. What effect do you suppose that my death will produce in Europe? None, sire. He did not give me time to finish. None? No, because it will not happen. But if it did happen? If it did, sire, then what? Your Majesty is the idol of the soldiers. They would be inconsolable, and the nation would be at the mercy of kings, and the popular cause forever lost. Lost? Doctor, and my son. Can you suppose? No, sire, nothing. But what a distance to traverse. Is it greater than that I have gone? What obstacles to overcome? Had I less obstacles to combat? Did I start from a higher point? No, doctor. My son bears my name, and I leave him my glory and the affection of my friends. It is not difficult to inherit my estate. I made no reply. This was the illusion of a father at his last agony, and it would have been too cruel to destroy it. The 28th, abdomen tight and painful. I proposed a mild purgative. He listened to me with his eyes closed and heaving a deep sigh, as though he heard that I had finished my homily. What were you saying, doctor? I recommenced my speech, and he recommenced his maneuvers, and at least got rid of me in that way. At 9 a.m., exacerbation of fever accompanied by icy coldness at the lower extremities and a violent headache. The remainder of the day was more favorable. 29th, bad night. At 1 a.m., paroxysm of fever, excessive coldness in the lower extremities, headache, swelling of the abdomen. At 2 p.m., the fever began to diminish. The disease was making rapid progress. I again made an attempt, at the risk of displeasing the emperor, entreating him no longer to reject the assistance of medicine. He made no reply, remained a few minutes absorbed in thought, and then said, You are right, I shall see. For the moment, your attendance is not necessary. You may withdraw. I was going, but he called me back and began to discuss about fate, whose blows not all the faculties in the world could avert or suspend. I endeavored to combat this fatal doctrine, but he spoke vehemently and constantly recurred to his usual sayings. Can you doubt, doctor, that everything that happens is written down, that our hour is marked, and that it is not in the power of any of us to take from time a portion which nature refuses us? I ventured to contradict him. He grew angry and sent me to the devil with my drugs. I withdrew, but a moment had sufficed to restore him to his natural kindness. And before I could reach my room, he sent for me and told me that he would henceforth behave more respectfully towards medicine, that he would no longer be wanting in deference. nor doubt its efficacy. But, sire, will your majesty consent to take medicines? Ah, replied he with a tone of voice that expressed the excessive repugnance he felt. That is perhaps beyond my power, for the aversion I feel for medicines is almost inconceivable. I exposed myself to dangers with indifference. I saw death without emotion. But I cannot, notwithstanding all my efforts, approach my lips to a cup containing the slightest preparation. True it is that I am a spoiled child who has never had anything to do with physic. Then turning to Madame Bertrand, how do you manage to take all those pills and drugs which the doctor is constantly prescribing for you? I take them without thinking about it, answered she, and I advise your majesty to do the same. He shook his head and addressed the same question to General Montholon and to his valets, who had all been more or less indisposed. Having received from all the same answer, he said to me, I am then the only one who rebels against medicine. I will no longer do so. Give me your stuff. I accordingly gave him 10 grains of extract of rhubarb, which he took, and which produced the desired effect. 30th, the emperor had passed a night of extreme agitation. I administered 6 grains of extract of rhubarb, which produced abundant vomiting. At 3, paroxysm of fever. 11 p.m. Restless night. The unfavorable symptoms continued, and the exacerbation of the fever was accompanied by a considerable degree of tightness of the abdomen. The patient was gloomy and uneasy. I endeavored to dispel the melancholy ideas which assailed the emperor by speaking to him of some of the men to whom I knew he had been very much attached, such as Dubois, Caffarelli, Kleber. Kleber was the god Mars in regimentals. He possessed courage, genius of conception, and every requisite qualification, but unfortunately he was too soon removed from the scene of his exploits. I was anxious to attach him to me and proposed to him to form part of the invasion with which we threatened England. I should like it, said he, but if I ask, the lawyers will refuse. I will arrange that for you, answered I. Well, in that case, if you send a fire ship on the Thames, put Kleber in it, and you will see what he can do. The 31st. The unfavorable symptoms which had begun to appear yesterday lasted until this morning. At daybreak, a violent perspiration took place. He refused the use of medicines. At 9 p.m., new exacerbation of the fever accompanied by intolerable heat and intensity of the abdomen. I continued the fomentations. April 1st, abundant perspiration. The patient had been tolerably quiet the remainder of the night. Abundant perspiration from the head, the chest, spine, the lower extremities alone were free from it. At about 8 in the evening, another paroxysm occurred, complicated with burning heat. The orderly officer, whose duty it was to certify the presence of Napoleon, was obliged each day to make a report to the governor, stating that he had seen him. But the emperor, having been confined to his bed ever since the 17th of March, he had been unable to fulfill that part of his instructions. Sir Hudson thought he was betrayed and came to Longwood with his suite. He went all around the house, and seeing nothing, he grew angry and threatened the officer with the severest punishment if he did not satisfy himself of the presence of General Bonaparte. The officer was placed in a very embarrassing situation, for he was aware of the emperor's intention and had besides no expectation that he would ever go out of the house. He applied to General Montholon and Marchand, who, feeling for his perplexity, found means to relieve him from his anxiety and to enable him to calm the anger of Sir Hudson. It was necessary to arrange matters in such a way as to prevent Napoleon from perceiving the agent of the governor, or even suspecting his presence. This was not easy to accomplish. They, however, succeeded. The emperor's bedroom was on the ground floor, and the windows were low enough to permit a view of everything that was going forward in the apartment. Napoleon, habitually caustic, was obliged to resort to the enema. The seat for that purpose was on this occasion placed opposite the window, and whilst General Montholon and myself were near the patient, Marchand gently opened the curtains a little as if to look out into the garden, and the officer who was waiting outside looked in, saw, and was enabled to make his report. This, however, did not satisfy the governor. He dreamt but of flights and evasions, and not a day passed that he did not endeavor to pry into the habitation of his prisoner. At last, on the 31st of March, he declared that if in the course of that, or at latest the next day, his agent was not enabled to see General Bonaparte, he would come along with his staff and force his way into the house without caring for the unpleasant consequences this step might produce. General Montsalon endeavored to induce him to abandon this intention. He represented to him the respect due to misfortune, and how much his unexpected appearance would discompose the emperor and wound his feelings. But Sir Hudson turned a deaf ear to these arguments. It was of little concern to him whether the prisoner lived or died. His duty was to secure his person, and that duty he would fulfill. He saw the tiger prowling around the house. I was suffocating with rage and was going out when he stopped me. What is General Bonaparte doing? I know not. Where is he? I cannot say. He's not there? Pointing to the cabin. He is not. What? He's disappeared? Quite. How? When? I do not recollect precisely. Endeavor to collect your ideas. Since what hour? What hour? The last battle he commanded was that of Abukir. He fought for civilization. You were protecting barbarism. He defeated your allies and threw them into the sea. His victory was complete, and I have not heard of him since. Doctor! Excellency! All here. No! Who? I! You! I! Soldiers! Soldiers, hasten, fill up the measure of your indignities by depriving the emperor of the short remains of his existence. The emperor? What emperor? He who made England tremble, who showed France the way to Dover, and placed in the hands of the continent the weapon which will sooner or later give the death blow to your aristocracy. His Excellency marched off, and I remained alone with Reed. It is not thus. No, surely it is not thus. That soul must be formed in the mud of the Thames. Who can come and watch for the last breath of a dying man? His agony is too long for your impatience. You wish to hasten it, to enjoy it. Decembrian, who had been ordered to kill Marius, drew back appalled at the sight of the crime he was about to commit. But you, if opprobrium can be at all commensurate to the outrage, we are fully avenged. The resolution taken by the Calabrian was too firm, and his own temper too savage, to permit any hope that the rules of decorum or the dictates of humanity would be attended to. Count Bertrand and General Montsalon therefore sought some other means to appease the storm. They represented to Napoleon that his health required care and the assistance of a skillful practitioner, and they were fortunate enough to induce him to call in a consulting physician. He chose Dr. Arnott, whom the governor made responsible for the existence of the emperor, and who was obliged to make every day to the orderly officer a report, which the latter was to transmit to Plantation House.